Earlier this year, I bought a secondhand Google Pixel 8a, put my iPhone 13 mini in a drawer, and switched over to GrapheneOS. As someone who's interested in Linux, open source software, privacy, and digital minimalism, GrapheneOS felt like the ultimate smartphone experiment. It's widely considered the most secure and privacy-focused mobile OS in the world, even recommended by people like Edward Snowden. So for the past few months, I used it as my actual daily phone. And for the most part, this thing's pretty amazing. But after living with it for a while, I ran into a few issues specifically for my workflow that have pushed me back to iPhone, at least for now. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what GrapheneOS actually is, how I enjoyed switching to it for the time that I did, what the frustrations were that I ran into, and whether I actually recommend it for the average user in 2026. If you don't know me, I'm Spencer, and I like to talk about simple living, frugality, and digital minimalism. Let's get into it. So first off, it's important to explain what actually is GrapheneOS. GrapheneOS is basically a privacy and security focused operating system for Google Pixel phones. The backbone of this thing is the Android open source project, so visually and functionally it feels very similar to Android itself, except it's hardened for security and privacy. By default, GrapheneOS comes completely de-Googled. This means no Google Play services running in the background or system-wide privileges for Google to look at everything you do. But never fear, if you are curious about GrapheneOS but you don't want to give up certain Google apps, you don't have to. And that takes us to what's pretty awesome about GrapheneOS compared to other de-Googled operating systems like LineageOS, and that's the fact that it has sandboxed Google Play. This means that you can download the Google Play Store and use Google Play services and download basically any app from the Play Store, but with this sandboxing, instead of Google having basically unrestricted access to your phone, GrapheneOS treats Google apps like regular apps. So you can still download YouTube or Google Maps or Gmail or banking apps or even social media apps, but Google loses those sweeping privileges that they would normally have on Android. And for me, that's what made this device really compelling, because our modern smartphones are essentially little surveillance devices that we opt to carry on our person. But with that in mind, you don't have to drop out of society or anything like that, but it did make me more curious to look into alternatives like this that exist and are meant to address the privacy and security concerns of modern smartphones. Which is the same reason I've been interested in things like Linux and other open source alternatives. So earlier this year, I bought this Google Pixel 8a secondhand on Facebook Marketplace for just a little bit over 200 Canadian dollars. And after setting this up and flashing GrapheneOS on this device, which took no more than 15 minutes using their super helpful online guide, I was pretty surprised with what I saw. The main thing I'll say is that if you're an Android user already, then GrapheneOS on a Pixel like this is kind of a no-brainer. I don't know what I was expecting, whether I was picturing some kind of half-baked project where most of this stuff was not working, stuff was constantly breaking, but this is essentially maintaining almost all the functionality of normal Android. I had my banking apps, Maps, Signal, Slack, YouTube Studio, social media, airline apps, podcast apps, email, local transit and bike share apps, basically everything that normal people actually use every day, and I was able to download them without any issue. And even apps like the Blackmagic camera app, which wouldn't allow me to download them from the Google Pixel store, there were workarounds so I could still get them on this device, so really there was nothing that I wasn't able to do on here. The two things that you are going to miss on here is I think Android Auto functionality. I'm pretty sure that doesn't work. I don't use it personally, so I wouldn't know. And then Google Pay. But as some of the smart Alex in the GrapheneOS forum recommended, you get a wallet that sticks to the back of your phone, you put your credit card in there, and then you essentially do have tap to pay again. And the Pixel 8a itself was truly great. I was really impressed with this thing, especially for the price. The performance, the battery life, the screen quality, I don't think it's the top tier available, but it's all pretty good. And especially because of the fact that Google now supports these for as long as they do, this specific phone that I got for just a little over $200 secondhand is going to be supported with GrapheneOS until May of 2031. So if you don't have crazy needs from your phone, this is an awesome option for you. For a little bit over $200 secondhand, you have a security and privacy forward smartphone that's going to last you until 2031, 5 years. But especially coming from iOS, the thing that really impressed me wasn't so much the hardware, but it was the software availability. And by that I mean things like F-Droid and Obtainium and the huge amount of open source apps that I had access to, which I never had access to or wasn't even aware of on iOS. And there's also a psychological shift that happens here, and I noticed it while using GrapheneOS, similarly to how I've noticed it since I've been experimenting with Linux for the last 8 months. When you're on iPhone or Mac or any of the Apple products really, they're extremely polished, well-made products that are super integrated and they just work. But you have to use them the way that they designed them for you to use them. And if you do that, the Apple products work really well. But if you're interested in open source projects and just seeing what exists outside of that walled garden, then you're going to run into some trouble. And that's what I liked so much about GrapheneOS, and what I've enjoyed about Linux as well, is that it encourages curiosity about my tech. Instead of just using whatever apps that Apple gives me to use, I started asking, is there an open source alternative or a more privacy-centric alternative to this? Or what if I can self-host an option? I started using AntennaPod for podcasts. I switched to LocalSend because I no longer had access to AirDrop. And both of those are great open source alternatives. And if AntennaPod existed over on the Apple ecosystem, I might have switched to using that instead. I also became a huge fan of Thunderbird Mail, and switching back to my iPhone, I was really bummed to find out that they don't have a version of that on iOS yet. So generally, this mental shift that has happened since I've been using things like Linux and GrapheneOS for the last few months was I just became more aware and more intentional of the types of software, the specifics that I was using, and I started moving toward more privacy and open source options. And if you'd like to see a video on the privacy and open source forward software that I've been using in the last few months, the apps that I've been choosing, let me know in the comments, because that's certainly something I could talk about. One thing you're going to notice coming over from iOS or Android is just all of the permissions that you actually are agreeing to on those devices that are unbeknownst to you, because Graphene makes them very much known. But folks, that's kind of just the point of GrapheneOS. You're supposed to have a lot more control and awareness over what permissions you're giving to certain apps, so you're not giving unnecessary access to these apps to your data. Now, I will say iOS does do a pretty decent job of this already. It allows you to choose photo access or whether you want to give precise location data to an app. But tweaking things like network access and even going further and using things like storage scopes on GrapheneOS, that's just another level that you're not going to find on a mainstream OS. Specifically, storage scopes essentially just allows apps to have access to only specific files or folders instead of the entire device. I think it can also kind of spoof access to certain things, so the app thinks that it has access to a certain permission when it really doesn't. At first glance, some of these extra customizations of privileges can feel kind of overwhelming when you're coming from normal Android or iOS, but once you actually get a sense of what they do, and once you realize all of these things that you must have just been agreeing to in the past, you start to appreciate it. For example, on GrapheneOS, you can actually download the Google Pixel camera app. On normal Android, because of these sweeping permissions that Google has on that device, all of the data from your camera app could go back to Google. Whereas on Graphene, you can turn off network access to the camera app entirely. This means that you can enjoy the Pixel camera app, which is tailored to work best with the cameras on the Google Pixel phones, but not send data back to Google. And again, I recognize that that is definitely a lot more technical sounding than the average Android or iOS experience, but it's really not that hard to wrap your head around once you actually get the phone set up. Again, what I'll say about GrapheneOS that I liked so much about it was just how seamless it was for me to transition to this from my iPhone without really missing any of the apps that I use day to day. Occasionally, I had to turn down some level of security hardening to access something like my banking apps, but everything worked once I had it tweaked. But now I want to move on to some of the frustrations that I had using this device, and interestingly, most of the issues that I had with this had nothing to do with GrapheneOS and more to do with Android itself. One Graphene specific problem that I ran into was just when I was traveling and I had to check in on my phone for a flight that I was taking. When I went through my email, clicked the link to go into the check-in portal, and did that through the browsers that I had on this phone, which is the Graphene developed Vanadium browser and also IronFox, which is kind of like a hardened version of Firefox. Neither of those displayed the check-in process properly, and I wasn't able to do it using those browsers. I'm pretty sure this check-in portal was only set up to work with either Chrome or Safari, and I had to download one of those if I was able to actually successfully check in for my flight. So unfortunately, I had to download Chrome and keep it on my phone for those few times where I'd need it, because that was the only way to get this thing working. In moments like that, it's not Graphene's fault. It's just increasingly frustrated how we are forced to use these centralized systems, and if you're not using them, you end up being kind of on the outs. Another issue that I had was I was trying to upload a YouTube Shorts and the YouTube app just wouldn't take it. It kept erroring over and over again. After reading about this online and troubleshooting it a few times, I realized that this wasn't even a Graphene issue, but more of an Android issue itself. Now, I have been an Android user in the past. My last Android phone was, I think, around 2020. I had a Samsung Galaxy S9, and I've tested a variety of Android phones on this channel, but my main phones have been iPhones for the last 5 or 6 years. And I don't know if this is something that's gotten worse over the years or something that I just didn't notice because I've been using Apple for so long, but it seems like Apple is a little bit more prioritized in app development and compatibility than Android is, perhaps just because of how many different devices exist in the Android model range and the umbrella of Android. You know, because with iOS, there's only like 3 or 4 different models of phones that are released every year, whereas under Android, there's probably like hundreds of them. So I think the problem here is just honestly that apps sometimes aren't as optimized for all Android devices and configurations. And this was kind of odd too, because this was a video that I actually had edited on my MacBook. I sent it via local send to my Graphene Pixel. It went on Instagram and uploaded fine, but then on YouTube, it just wouldn't go. It continued to error over and over again. So I was forced to send it over to my 13 mini where it uploaded fine the first try. And for me personally, there was one more issue that ultimately became kind of a deal breaker for me and the reason why I switched back to iOS, and that is the camera performance. Now, before I go into this section of the video, I just want to be clear that I am indeed very much an outlier here. Most of the people watching this video, I would say over 95% of them aren't going to care about the issues that I talk about here. I'm a film professional here in Toronto, Canada. I work in the film industry as my career as a camera guy. I also have this YouTube channel, so I'm creating social media content kind of professionally as well. But I work on TV shows and movies and stuff that actually goes to air on television. So I look at cameras a little bit differently than the average smartphone user would. And increasingly as a video professional, as clients are looking to post more and more stuff online, smartphones are becoming more and more a part of our workflows. So I'm aware that as part of my job, I'm asking more from my smartphone than most people ever will. And honestly, for photos, the Google Pixel camera, even on the 8A, is amazing, and sometimes I even preferred it to what I was getting on iPhone. Even with GrapheneOS's native camera app, I sometimes preferred the photos that I was getting on them because they're just a little bit softer, a little bit more natural in color. And I even picked up this used Google Pixel 9 Pro just so I could test the camera performance on the best available option. I put GrapheneOS on here too, and on the Pixel 9 Pro, the camera performance was even better than the 8A by a large margin. But even on this phone, on the Pixel 9 Pro, which technically in camera specs smokes my 13 mini, the video performance was where it all started to fall apart. And not even because the final video that I was getting from here was bad, but it was because the performance kind of just felt unreliable. With the iPhone, I felt that everything I saw while I was filming was what I got when I cut the recording and went to view it in the Photos app. But with the Pixel camera doing as much computer processing as it does, I felt like the final photo wasn't really visible until after I had already taken it. This happened with videos as well, where sometimes I was filming it and looking at my screen doing like, let's say a selfie video or something like that, it looked extremely dark and I was like, this looks horrible. I can't brighten this up to even see what I'm seeing. And then as soon as I cut the video and went to go look at it in my gallery, it was all brightened like nothing what I had seen before. And this is weird because I know that Google does a lot of post-processing on their videos. They have a feature called Video Boost where it enhances stabilization and sharpness of the image, but that requires it to be sent up to the cloud, and I have network permissions turned off. But even still, on the Pixel camera app, I noticed that there was a lot of processing that was happening after the image was taken. I would hit stop on the recording and suddenly the stabilization, which on the telephoto lens looks absolutely horrible as you're shooting, well, all of that was fixed in post and it looked really smooth. Colors would change, brightness would shift, all this post-processing was happening after the fact, but it made it really hard for me as a shooter to know what I was actually shooting when I was doing it. So as someone who cares about framing and lighting and camera movement while you're filming, all of that was taken out of my hands, which was really frustrating. I also tried switching to Open Camera and Graphene's camera app, but I ran into issues with those as well. Open Camera was probably my favorite option, but honestly, I found that there really wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach, and I kind of had to use all three of the different apps depending on what I was using them for. And specifically of GrapheneOS's camera app, I would say that was the best of the three when you're talking Pixel Camera, Open Camera, or GrapheneOS. I think that was actually my favorite of those three options. Occasionally, I ran into audio sync issues, especially if I was uploading that video clip onto somewhere like YouTube or Instagram. Sometimes I would shoot a video and then I would play it back, and it was like a half second the audio was out. And again, if you're somebody who's just taking photos of your dog or cats or your friends, or when you're on vacation, you're probably never going to run into any of these issues that I'm taking with this device now. But as I said, increasingly on jobs, I'm having clients ask me to film stuff on my phone for some of the content I'm delivering, so I'm definitely looking at it with a more critical eye. At this point, Apple's content creation pipeline, whether that's on a Mac or an iPad or an iPhone, it's just so reliable and mature. Even my iPhone 13 mini, which was the lowest tiered hardware compared to all the other cameras that came out that year, that video quality still beats anything that I got on these Google Pixels. And it's very similar to me using my MacBook. In an ideal world, I'd love to switch over to a Framework 13 running Linux as my main computer. But if you're anything like me and your tech has something to do with your livelihood, then at a certain point, reliability starts to matter a bit more than ideology. So although I've switched back to my iPhone for now, I'm still very interested in GrapheneOS. And I'm going to sell one of these Google Pixels now that I'm done testing with these, but I'm going to hold on to the other one so I can keep exploring GrapheneOS as updates come. I know the camera app's about to get updated in, I think, a little while. But I want to keep experimenting with this device, just like I have been with Linux on my ThinkPad T480 and now on the Framework 13 that I've been testing, because I want to keep a foot in this free and open source world. And as more and more people find themselves coming over to these devices, I think the workflows are going to continually get more supported. And pretty soon those workflow and quality of life issues that I was noticing switching over to Graphene will be non-existent. And as I said, if you're an Android user and you're at all curious about trying GrapheneOS, I would say give it a shot. As of now, they only run on Google Pixels, which is kind of odd given that it's kind of a de-Googled phone natively. But in the near future, Graphene is going to be working with Motorola to provide support to those upcoming devices. And if you're currently an Apple user of some kind, but you still are curious about open source software or Linux or privacy, I'd still say give GrapheneOS a shot. With both Android and GrapheneOS, there's a whole world of customization and open source apps that are open to you would never find on iOS. But it is a very different approach, as I mentioned. With Apple, they have spent a lot of time and money dialing in the hardware and software experience, and you have to use it the way that they designed it to be used. For me, as long as I stay at least partially in the Apple ecosystem, I'm going to work to harden that approach a little bit more for security. And if you'd like to see a video in the future of how I set up my iPhone for security, then let me know in the comments because I very well might make that video. So folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Just my thoughts after using GrapheneOS for a couple of months. As I said, I intend to keep experimenting with GrapheneOS, and as corporations and governments continue to push for more centralized control over our digital lives, tracking, and even OS-wide ID verification, I might find myself coming back to here sooner rather than later. Because tools like GrapheneOS are extremely important, even if they aren't quite perfect for my use case as of yet. I'm interested to hear from you guys in the comments section. Have you tried GrapheneOS yet? Have you made the switch, or are you considering switching? Let me know down below. Thanks again for watching, folks. I appreciate you as always, and I'll see you in the next one.